Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. So, I received today's word on the evening of November 5th, Election Day. While in the Lord's presence praying with my husband and our eldest son and his wife, I saw in a vision a map of the United States with a power grid of bright lights. Each light represented believers in Jesus, flickering all across the country. As each state declared its election results, the lights turned dim, like a rolling blackout, one state after another. In the darkness that prevailed, I could see only a few pockets of lights remaining lit. These were the lights of God's remnant of believers. Before I shared what I had seen with the group, my son spoke up and described a vision he had similar to mine, except more dramatic in detail. And this is what he saw. The first thing I saw was the map of the United States. It was lit up like you see when flying overhead at night. As I watched, starting at the East Coast and moving westward, the power began to go out. As each grid or time zone went dark, one after the other, I heard the loud thud of breaker switches. When it ended, all the lights had gone out, leaving only small fires strewn across the national landscape, few and far between. The vision then changed, and I saw a familiar scene from the movie Star Wars Episode 3, where Senator Palpatine was standing in the middle of the Senate, hooded and marred, declaring the beginning of the Galactic Empire. As in the film, the crowd in my vision cheered. While I watched, the vision began to focus and slowly zoom in on Palpatine's face. Under the hood of his cloak, his face was dark and shadowy. It bore a resemblance to Donald Trump's face, but only slightly. The left half of the face was completely blacked out, while the right half was a dark gray. As I looked at the face, the right eye began to glow red. Our son also received a prophetic word, which I've linked to this post. The Lord then highlighted to me the phrase diminished authority, speaking of the consequence of diminished spiritual authority for those believers who voted to support the pro-abortion, pro-homosexual platform which Trump endorsed. The binding agreement created by their vote has allowed darkness to maintain a spiritual stronghold in this nation. The biblical story of Israel and the Gibeonite deception better illustrates what the Lord is showing us. In Joshua 9, after Israel had been tasked with driving their enemies out of the land, Joshua and the leaders acted hastily, having been tricked by the Gibeonites into making a covenant with them. The consequences of that binding agreement, unfortunately, took away Israel's authority to drive them out of Canaan. And then I heard this. The election is over and the results are in. Thus has the next president been duly elected. For indeed have the American people made their voices heard, and so have chosen that man Trump to govern their nation. So while many will count his win as a cause for celebration, yet are they ignorant of the spiritual ramifications his victory shall actually cause. See then was that Trojan horse brought in through America's gates by the hands of our own people. However, the evil contained within that choice has yet to be detected. Nonetheless, are they to blame for granting the enemy permission to enter, and thus enabling him to advance his plans of destruction? As such, shall countless lives be destroyed because of that narrow-sighted decision. Ah, then, has a peaceful transference of power occurred, for willingly has the Church in America made a covenant with darkness through their participation in the most recent presidential election. For indeed did they give their consent to its ongoing existence in this nation when they too cast their vote for that man Trump. As such shall the entire nation be affected by their decision to compromise and thereby join forces with darkness. And so shall this consequence of their disobedience now be unavoidable. For once their assent was made official, a shift occurred in the spiritual terrain, which has given the enemy greater influence over this people. Surely then does the church in America stand in a diminished state, for she now lacks the ability to fully drive out the enemy from her land, as this opportunity was squandered when the overwhelming majority of believers chose to knowingly support evil, though according to their rationale, Trump was the lesser evil of the two. However, regardless of their attempts to justify this course of action, the sad reality is that the majority of the church has said yes to evil. Sadly, despite my repeated warnings not to participate in this most recent presidential election cycle, even still a large portion of the church ignored my pleas and so engaged in the electoral process. Therefore shall these children reap a harvest of rebellion, for indeed are these the seeds they have sown. Thus shall the next generation of the church be even less inclined to follow my ways, for those behaviors I count as abhorrent shall then be deemed as acceptable by them. Thankfully, I have preserved for myself a loyal remnant, one that is not tainted by the stench of disobedience, as these children refuse to partner with evil, even when pressured by their fellow brethren to do so. It is for precisely that reason I have called these of my own to operate as pockets of resistance against the darkness that was just permitted to invade this nation. So though few in number, still shall it be their warfare that is effectual against the demonic forces ushered in once Trump takes the Oval Office. For indeed has the authority of these children not been hampered in any way. Then across this land shall those warriors emerge, as even now am I calling them forth, and so shall these of my own walk in a higher level of authority, as indeed is increase upon them. For surely then will they be better equipped to fight the battle which lies just ahead. Therefore these of my own should sit expectant, for they are about to encounter supernatural enlargement. Then to those of my own who chose to abstain, do I say, gird yourselves up, for open war is upon you. Therefore prepare for a rather intense battle, as the enemy's forces have known a sudden reinforcement, and as such shall not easily be driven out. Yet into your hands shall I release the perfect strategies to aid you in the fight over this nation. And so do I say again, gird yourselves up, for open war is indeed upon you. Thanks again for joining me today.